Here we go for another edition of Jofo in the Ring with our special guest, the three-time longest reigning GNW Champion, our friend and yours, Jeremy Prophet, and Kyle Morin as well.
Yeah, and I'm here.
But we got a
But
great
more
guest.
importantly,
We got a great guest.
Jeremy Prophet.
Jeremy Prophet. Jeremy, what's going on, buddy?
Welcome to the show.
Hey, you know, I'm glad to be here. I feel like this has been a long time
It's
coming.
been a long time coming.
I think it all started when you did that little featurette on me and how we could have maybe been business associates back in the day. You could have kind of
I kind of picked the wrong guy in this the whole thing there, but I'm glad to see everything has worked out for you. As we could see here with the GNW Championship, this is your baby. This one right here.
I mean, they're all my baby.
Yes,
Any
yes.
championship belt that I have has a special place
Yes,
in my heart.
yes.
And I've been winning championships for 15
Yeah.
years now, as long as I've been doing
Yeah.
this. These are the ones I hold currently. I actually have two more that I hold, but these
Okay.
are the ones I really like to showcase.
Okay.
They all have a unique story behind them. They all have an importance. And I had to, fight like a dog to be able to get those.
That's for sure. That's for sure. When you're on that independent scene, it's not. Sometimes it's not easy and it's not hard.
and
But
of course, you would know.
well, I've been there, done that. But no, not.
I mean, technically,
jokes aside.
you were in the wrestling business. Let's just be real.
I
here.
was
But
in
before
the
I
I was in the LaSalle wrestling business, in the using WWE names as my own, and then I had to figure something out. But what happened was then I had to stop because nobody wanted to do it with me anymore. I go, let me have some real names, and then plus I didn't have Jeremy Prophet on my side. I had 8 of the tracks.
Yeah, Jeremy Prophet in the audience, though.
You mean to tell me nobody wanted to do a fucking Couche-Tard backlot brawl with you?
Well, the whole thing was the Tough Enough. He ended up. I didn't pick him for the Tough Enough.
Yeah.
Which you already know the whole story because I've said it many
You
times.
you clearly went with the better athlete.
As we can see here, but
Yeah. As he calmly cracks his beer.
But yeah, so this belt right here, this is the championship belt. This one here.
They're all championships,
Okay, no,
but this
but
is the championship belt of
the
Canada.
single-
More
Of
specifically,
Canada,
these
of
are
Canada.
singles titles.
Well, these are the singles.
This is
titles,
your
I
tag
mean.
team.
This is
Yes.
a tag team.
That's correct.
These are singles. This is the championship belt of Canadian.
Of the entire country.
Okay.
This
Who
is
who did you beat to get this one here?
Just for the people at home that can.
It's a nice belt.
That's a beautiful
Yeah.
belt.
Yeah.
So I've actually held this belt 3 times. Now, the first time I won it, I beat the inaugural champion, who happened to be the genius Lanny Poffo. That one was nice and easy. Lanny's old, up in age, can barely do a moonsault
For
anymore.
anyone doesn't know, that's Macho Man's brother in real life.
He was the one who gave the speech at the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So nowadays, he talks a lot better than he can wrestle. He's kind of far on down the downslope of his career. So that was my first championship reign, which actually, if I'm not mistaken, was my longest, although this one is closing in on that pretty quickly.
Okay.
Then I won it a second time in one of the hardest fought matches I've ever had. I encourage you all to go on YouTube and find it. I beat Hannibal, who is one of the toughest guys I've ever been in the ring with. A guy who people are terrified of fighting, but I'm Jeremy Prophet, so I ain't terrified of stepping in there with anyone. That's what I do. Him and another guy named Darko, who's practically 7 feet tall. One of the stiffest, roughest matches I've ever been in, but they make us pretty tough here in LaSalle, so it was easy peasy. And then the third one I won most recently from Wes Briscoe, who's the son of Gerald Briscoe. He was also in TNA. He was part of Aces and Eights. Hard fought match. Had a couple of run-ins with him, and I came out on the victorious end of that one. And now it's good to see that a Canadian is holding the Canadian
That's
championship.
it. You know what? And we're all proud that you have that. During the pandemic, how has been the wrestling? Like, there's no wrestling. How is
Wrestling has been 0 to none.
0 to
I
none,
mean,
eh?
we unfortunately here in Quebec, there's a ban on combat
Yes,
sports.
yeah.
So wrestling, some consider it a sport, some consider it entertainment.
Okay.
We kind of fall, unfortunately, under whatever they want us to be
Okay.
to fit their narrative. So right now, it's a rough situation, not only for us in the professional wrestling industry, but for boxers, martial artists, all
Everything,
these
yeah.
guys who they earn their living doing this, and they can't practice their sport.
Exactly. You can't do it at all right now.
You'd,
right?
you'd think, though, with like the history that this city has with combat sports, like we got GSP, we got Jeremy Prophet,
Yeah.
all these people, they'd be more lenient on actioning combat sports, though. Like,
You'd think. Now, to me, what I can't understand is that, the gyms they got a free pass.
Yeah.
And, anyone can go to the gym and tons of numbers of people can go there, work out, use the same equipment, work out together, do yoga together, do all these things. But for some reason, combat sports, we can't get together and put on an event. We can't even train together.
No, that's it.
And so they don't realize this is people's livelihoods. There are dojos going out of business. There's, people who can't earn a living because they are professional athletes in combat sports. And now no one's doing anything to see that this is something that should be allowed. Almost everything else is opened up. We're all getting back on track here, except for us, the fighters, who can't do that. So I think it's something that has kind of flown under the radar. Maybe might need to be scrutinized a little bit more.
What's the latest on wrestling in Montreal and Quebec?
There's
right
none.
now?
There is nothing going
at all.
on. There are no shows going on behind closed doors. There are no tapings with no fans.
Okay.
There's nothing going on. There are places that have some training going on, but it's really like you have to be one-on-one with a trainer at a distance. You can maybe be in the ring and be coached, but you can't train in a group. And I mean, when it comes to wrestling, it's a two-person sport.
Yeah.
You can fine-tune your promos, you can work on other aspects, but the actual bread and butter is the in-ring athleticism, and now we can't get together and even train in wrestling, let alone put on a show. I know that Ontario seems to be, loosening up.
I've seen that. Yeah.
I actually think that Doug Ford's doing a pretty good job of relaunching things. Unfortunately, they're a little slow here, but actually I wouldn't even say that they're slow. I would say it's more a case of they just probably haven't realized. I mean, with the gyms, they were supposed to be closed until September, October.
Yeah, exactly.
But then people started saying, okay, well, we're going to open our gym because, we're going to go bankrupt if not. So whatever, they're going to fine us 10 grand. Okay, 10 grand is better than bankruptcy. And they kind of push the envelope.
Okay.
So, maybe wrestling should do the same thing and start pushing the envelope.
Take a chance.
So that at least they'll get noticed. But as of now, I mean, I haven't had a match since March. And I'm the kind of person who was doing, 2-3 matches a week. There'd be times I'd be doing 2 different towns on a Saturday because I like to wrestle. And I mean, I'm durable. I haven't had an injury in 15 years of doing it. Never injured, no concussions, no broken bones, torn tendons, nothing like that.
Well,
Never
Knock
touched
on
that.
wood.
From the
Knock on
last
wood.
time I've seen you, you've gone even bigger than the last time. That's what.
Yeah, but I mean, I was in high school the last time that
No, but like
sideshow.
seeing you in videos, seeing you on YouTube. Like it's not like I've seen you face to face since then, but seeing you on YouTube videos and looking up on you, I'm like, wow. I'm gonna go, Bruno. I go, wow.
I think
look
with
how big he's getting. It's crazy.
I think with wrestlers, and I know you probably had something to say there, so I'll give
Oh,
you the
it's all
floor
good.
right
It's all
after.
good.
I don't want to impose.
You're
I'm
our
a
guest.
here.
You're our guest. You do what you want.
But I think that wrestlers kind of fall into 2 categories. You have the ones that when you see them in a video, they either look bigger or smaller, and then when you see them in person, there's the other side of that. Like I've had people who they say, "Oh, well, we saw you in a video. We didn't know you were that tall," and it's like, well, I guess I'm taller in person than I look on screen. Maybe the ropes are high.
It all depends who you're wrestling to, right?
It's I guess it could be that, but I mean, also in terms of how I look, some people, the leaner you are, the better you look on camera, or so they say.
Yeah.
Other times, some people they might look average on TV, but in person they're pretty impressive. We all try to be in TV shape.
I saw Kevin Owens one time at Angry on Mall, and on TV he looks like me. He looks like an average guy, but then I actually see him in real life, and the motherfucker's arms are huge.
Oh yeah.
And he's taller than me, and I'm like a pretty decent average height person. And I was just like, oh my God, this guy's massive. It's crazy.
There's a lot of fake news on the internet too, because I mean, I've seen sites where they list me at being 5'8". I'm like 5'10" and a half on a good day.
Is that a thing?
Oh yeah. If you go on like about a cage match or one of these sites where they have wrestling, I
Put an
remember
extra 20
I was
pounds
listed.
there.
I was listed at 5'8" and 175 pounds, and I'm like, maybe when I started training back in like 2004, I was that because I was also like 16 years old. But when it comes down to it, it's like anyone who meets me, who sees me, what you see is what you get. And in the words of Billy Graham, what you don't see is better yet.
Yeah. I like that.
Shout out to the superstar.
Yeah. I like
So
that.
during the pandemic, what have you been doing to not get ring rust?
I've been studying on wrestling a lot. Now, I got to admit, and it pains me to admit it, with the gyms being closed, I was, not training, eating whatever I want. I'm usually a guy who follows a strict diet in the gym every day. But, unfortunately, with gyms being closed, I got to admit that for probably the first time in my career, I got a little lazy.
Me too.
Didn't train, let myself go. Thankfully, by the grace of God, now things are open back up, right back in there, right back to the same routine,
back to work
making
kind of thing,
gains, and doing the best with what I'm in control of, which is something I would say to all the wrestlers out there is that even if something is not at your disposal, there are still aspects of your game that you can fine tune. And that's been my calling card since day one, is I don't want to be someone who's known for just one or even
thing.
two things.
Yeah.
Granted, in the professional wrestling business, there are a lot of guys who made a lot of money doing one thing really good.
Yeah.
Some guys, fantastic talkers. They
We
can
all
talk
know
till the
who they
cows
are,
come
yeah.
home.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will be interested in what they can do. Now, once the bell rings, that's
story.
another story. I
Yeah.
mean, people might be asking for refunds
Yeah.
on their tickets. But when it comes to me, I never wanted to be one-dimensional. I never wanted to be a guy who's just a good talker or just a body or, just an aerialist.
Because someone's going to find something to criticize you about, right? In the end, because if you are a good talker and then you go on and wrestle, like, okay, I'm excited to see this guy wrestle because he built it up so well on the mic and in promos, and then when he gets in the ring, it's like, oh okay, it's just another guy. But I know you're not that kind of guy, and I know there's a lot of guys out there like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, but a lot of people thought about that like Hulk Hogan. Like he was just a talker. He had his 5 or 6 moves or whatever. But I every now and then I see this match that pops up on the internet, and it's him. I think it's in '93 against the Great Muta in Japan, and he put on a clinic.
Yeah.
Like drop toe holds, arm drags, and this is Hogan.
But everyone
like
thinks he doesn't know how to
prime
wrestle.
top of his game, Hogan, and
So-
it's just he did it the WWE way of things.
Yeah.
He got to go to Japan. I think it was New Japan, and just fucking killed it.
See, it's something in wrestling where the ideal professional wrestler is someone who can accentuate their strengths and hide their weaknesses.
Okay.
So, for example, if someone is not a great wrestler, technical or otherwise, then maybe they just choose not to showcase that. Doesn't mean they can't do it. It just doesn't mean that that's their top ability that they possess.
But does that depend who they're fighting to sometimes? Like,
Well, you see, in wrestling, we don't always get to choose our opponents, and there's definitely people we have better chemistry with. There's some people, I like to step in there with someone that can give me a good fight. That, like, if I'm going to go in there and I'm going to have a lot of intensity, I want them to match that. Unfortunately, I meet a lot of guys where they kind of melt under that, and it becomes like, okay, now, I got to maybe hold back on this guy so I don't put him out in the first
that's not
couple of
good to
minutes,
happen
and then
in a
he's
match too,
cussing
right?
me out in the back.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
so it becomes like, I like when I can get in there with someone and we can be on the same wavelength. Like I've had a chance to wrestle a lot of great wrestlers, even a lot of great first matches. One that always comes to mind is there's a great talent out there named Dalton Castle. He was Ring of Honor champion not too long ago.
Okay.
Still there with the company. We showed up on a show in New England for a company called New England Championship Wrestling, which was run by promoter Sheldon Goldberg, a guy who did a lot of good for me, one of the few people who gave me some great opportunities in the United States.
Great, yeah.
And we show up at a show, both making our debuts. This is like I think it was maybe like 2011, 2012. We're the pre-show match, dark match, whatever you want to call it. And I met this guy for the first time. He's from New York. I'm from Montreal. We don't know each other from Adam. And we went out there. We had the best match on the show. We blew everything out of the water because this is actually a guy, like I said, he didn't melt when I started getting into second and third gear.
exactly.
Here's a guy who's matching me, and now
Wow,
it
this guy
becomes,
can hang, fucking,
okay,
yeah.
he's hitting me. I'm hitting him hard. He's hitting me just as hard back. Okay, that's what I like.
Yeah.
Now we're getting to where we have actual, good chemistry in there. So for me, with opponents, it does depend sometime too. But if you're a professional, you can get the best out of whoever you're in there with. The expression of like, this guy's so good he could wrestle a broom. That's what I aim to be. I'm like, give me that broom. We're gonna go in there. We're gonna have us that 5-star match. You're gonna be believing in that broom.
Yeah.
You'll believe that broom could kick my ass. That's the art of professional wrestling. Is that you can go in there and you can put on something that people will say, wow, you know what? Even if the rest of the show was trash,
Exactly.
I got my money's worth seeing those guys
you
go
remember
at it.
this? You remember that? That's what you want. You want to be that guy too, right?
Exactly. Like I remember I was at a house show for WWE, and the dark match was Sami Zayn before he got to the main roster, and Cesaro, and it was the greatest. It was the best match of the night, like bar none. It was fantastic.
You got Cesaro.
Like you got Cesaro and you got Sami Zayn, and they just tore the house down.
Well, Cesaro's a great talent, and obviously with it being in Montreal, Zayn probably wanted to, show off for his home crowd. I mean, if I were in his shoes, I'd want to do the same thing. I'd be like, you know what? I don't care if the rest of these guys are sore from the bumps and bruises of the road and all that. This is where I grew up. These people, they know me. They're my people. I want to give them their money's worth with that. And that, I feel, is always my calling card, is no matter where, I could be in front of 10 fans, 10,000 fans, you're going to get your money's worth when Jeremy Prophet is on the card. I hold myself to that standard. And it's something that I'm very big on.
Paying off, apparently.
Well, clearly I'm doing something
I
right.
think you know what you're doing.
But keeping the ego in check here. When it comes down to it,
You don't have to.
I've just always been someone who I've not been satisfied. Where it's like, okay, I can go in there and I can do the moves, but what else is there? I don't just want to be, the most technically sound, the most athletic, the best on the mic. What am I missing? What else is there? I gotta.
You always want to improve, right?
Yeah, you got to look at every aspect of your game. You see, Bret Hart came up with this. I call it the Bret Hart scale. Some of you might know it, some of you might not. But Bret Hart said that wrestlers should be judged on 3 sets of criteria. And I watch wrestling. I'll watch WWE. I'll watch AEW, and look at where the person is on the card and use this scale and say, does this justify their position as a main event, mid-card, whatever it is. So the 3 things Bret Hart uses to assess people, and by the way, I've been a fan of Bret Hart my whole life. First match I ever saw
I know
was,
Bruno isn't a Bret Hart fan. I know he's a Shawn Michaels guy, but that's for another day.
Bret was the first match I ever saw in wrestling, period. It was Bret Hart and Blake Beverly. It was like a throwaway match on a noon Maple Leaf Wrestling. And that made me love wrestling and want to be a professional wrestler. Was seeing Bret Hart. I had the chance to meet him on a couple of occasions. He's a great guy. Funny little story is my sister actually works in banking, and she works with him out in Calgary. So yeah, there's a bit of a connection there. But yeah, Bret was always a big inspiration. And with the Bret Hart scale, he said that wrestlers should be judged on 3 criteria: their look, their speaking ability, and their in-ring ability, on a scale of 10. And he used the example of Hulk Hogan, where he said, you look at a guy like Hogan, look-wise, 10 on 10.
10 on 10.
On the mic, 10 on 10. In the ring, I think he said maybe like a 4 or a 5.
Yeah.
But you can apply that to anyone. The example I always like to use is Macho Man, Randy Savage, because if you look at him, he might be 10s right across the board.
Yeah.
Tremendous look, tremendous on the microphone, and in ring, he could go with the best of them.
Yeah.
Some people even say that the Bret Hart scale might have been created in the image of Macho Man Randy Savage.
Makes sense.
As the ideal. But you can apply that scale to anyone. I mean, there's a few examples that kind of come close to breaking the scale, but it holds up. I mean, you look at a guy like Jeff Hardy, look-wise, not so much there.
Yeah.
He's in jeans and a tank top. In ring-wise, yeah, he's got his moments and stuff. On the mic, again, it's hit or miss.
Like Brock Lesnar? Brock Lesnar you would do?
Well, with Brock Lesnar, I mean, we can't deny his wrestling ability.
Yeah.
With a 2-time NCAA.
Yeah.
And main eventing WrestleMania, doing matches that can hold people's interest, especially his later matches. So, I mean, clearly in ring, he's got it. Look-wise, if you're going to say Brock's not a 10 on 10, I want to see what you look like. You best be taking off your shirt and show me what kind of an Adonis you are, because if Brock ain't a 10 on 10, then, I don't know who is.
Get your eyes checked.
And then you have the mic skills?
It comes to the mic skills, and that's where things kind of take a bit of a dip. But if you add that up, he's already a 10 on 10 in 2 categories.
Yeah.
That's a 20.
That's 20 out of 30.
That's the thing, though. He was talking, though, like after he left Paul Heyman in like 2003, or Paul Heyman left him, he was doing his own promos and he was solid. It's just, I guess, when he got back from the UFC,
I think he didn't like doing his own promos. From everything that I've read, I think he just felt more comfortable having Heyman there. And I mean, I've been a guy, I've had managers, I've done my own talking. I much prefer saying what I want to say, because I understand me and I know what I need to say to elicit the kind of reaction that I want from an audience. But having a manager, I'm not ashamed to say, it makes your job a lot easier, because then you have someone there to hype you up. You have someone that's gonna kind of color in the picture for you, for the picture, the frame that you've laid out. So that's the advantage of managers, and it's kind of a thing that's maybe making a bit of a comeback now. I see AEW is embracing it.
Yes,
we actually we touched on that a few episodes back, because we did a top 5 managers, and like you said, managers are slowly making a comeback. I know there's a lot of valets, like Zelina Vega, without a doubt, manager. I find. Yeah. Lana, valet.
Yeah.
I don't find her that great as she shouldn't be billed as a manager, but so for you, top 5 or greatest manager of all time, in your opinion?
Personally, I would say the greatest manager of all time. It's hard to argue with Bobby Heenan.
Yeah.
I mean, Bobby the Brain, his comedic timing, his knowing when to, as we say in the business, knowing when to show his ass, knowing when to kind of, have the good guy get to him and to evade him, and to also say things in promos to actually promote the match, hence why they're called promos. He was outstanding at that. And a lot of people, they come close. There's a lot of disputes, but who else was there? Freddie Blassie, I think, comes very close because he was legitimately hated. And nowadays people don't even really understand heat, in the sense of heat is not annoying an audience or getting them to boo you. Heat is making them hate you. It's not a noise.
Yeah.
It's a feeling.
Yeah.
It's watching someone
Firing them up.
You know, it's watching someone, and heat transcends professional wrestling. It goes into every aspect. It could be the president of the United States talking. It could be the prime minister of Canada. If you watch them and you hate them, you don't have to make an audible noise. They're getting heat.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Heat is a feeling. It's an emotional rush.
Yeah.
And you know, when I'm out there and you know I'm supposed to be hated. Hey, look, I want to make you feel that. I want to make you absolutely hate me. I want to make you feel like, you know, I'm going to see this guy in the parking lot after, and you know, he and I, we're gonna go.
Yeah.
That's heat. Nowadays, people are kind of scared of that
Yeah.
because sometimes, you know, you go too far. You make a kid cry. You know, upset this
Sure,
person
yeah.
for real. Well, look, you know, I've watched a lot of movies and TV shows, and I've been upset for real at what I see. But at the end of the day, I know that this is a performance.
Yeah.
So the best heels are the ones who can absolutely make people hate them, not
Yeah.
be annoyed, not just boo them, not wink, wink. You know, I'm really a good guy outside of this, but I'm playing a bad guy that you love to. No, that you hate.
You're basically
That you-
literally describing MJF right now.
Yeah.
MJF is the description you just said right there.
Well, you know, MJF.
Do you know him personally? Do you ever? I know he's younger than us, but
No, you know, I think we crossed paths. I did a WrestleMania weekend in New York.
Okay.
Actually, it was in Jersey,
Okay.
New York, New Jersey. Last year's WrestleMania. I think we crossed paths because there was a show going on before us. I think it was GCW, Game Changer Wrestling, and then IWS had a show right after. And I mean, I don't really follow the independent scene too closely, so like. Only afterwards, people were telling me, like a good friend of mine, Sexy Eddie, one of my best rivals
Yeah.
in wrestling. He was saying that he had spoken to MJF. That's the first I'd ever heard of him. He's like, oh, there's this guy with a scarf, MJF, who was telling me that you know he was in the audience when I wrestled this match at CZW, and it inspired him to want to be a wrestler and this kind of thing. And he's like, oh, it's cool that here's a guy
Really?
who's
Wow.
you know on TV making a living doing this that I inspired, and that
crazy.
was the first I ever heard of MJF. But then they started telling me like all these different guys, MJF, Marco Stunt,
Yeah.
Janela. These are guys that I never really worked with or been on shows with, but there was kind of like that. They were, I guess, more like the generation after me.
Okay.
Which, again, I faced a lot of guys that are on TV now,
Yeah.
earning their livings doing this. Did a lot of great matches with a lot of them. I could name you tons of guys in AEW that I've had matches with, and you know, we've done some good business together. You know, I've wrestled Evil Uno, he's from Ottawa.
He's from Ottawa, yeah, that's what I was
you know,
gonna say,
I
he's Canadian.
wrestled him for the first time, I think, back in like my rookie year, back in 2005, and we've done a couple of matches since then. I wrestled Mark Quinn, a private party, a good friend
yeah.
of mine.
Really?
We had 2 or 3 matches in the state of Maine. It was like the Battle of the 450 at the time we did it. Some of those matches are online. You can see. I'll be the first to say, like, he impressed me because I put a dirty beating on him in those matches. And he rose to the occasion. He took it, never complained, nothing.
that's the thing,
it
right?
was
Like,
tough.
do you get people that complain after a match, like, "Hey, Jeremy, like, you shouldn't have hit me that," you know, that way, or-
Tons of people complain.
Yeah.
I mean,
but in a good way, or like to help the situation.
It's the
for
chops.
next
Eh?
time,
They don't want the chops.
tons of people complain, but I mean, I'll say it like this: is that I have never injured anybody.
Okay.
Wrestling is a combat sport.
Yeah.
The government says so themselves.
Yeah.
Wrestling is meant to be rough. It's meant
Yeah.
to be physical.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, me and these guys over here, like, you know, we played hockey. I come from playing physical
I'm sure you
sports.
guys used to wrestle at someone's house there
Oh,
with Antonio
of course.
Patulli back in the day, you know.
Of course.
Let me slam you, let me body slam you, let me figure four, you know.
So it's like I'm used to the physicality, but I mean, you have guys who are, you know, who are nerds, you know, who never played a sport in their life.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes, yeah, you might hit a guy and the guy, oh, you know, that was stiff, that was
Oh,
rough. It's
yeah.
like, okay, but did you die?
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
like Ken Jeong said in The Hangover, did you die? Are you dead? Are you like? I'm proud to say I've never injured anybody. By the same token, I've never been injured. I've never been in there with somebody who's been reckless to a point of endangering my well-being. I knock on wood, that's never happened. But I think a lot of that, again, is my own toughness and durability.
Of course.
But the first and most important lesson in wrestling that you're taught from the beginning is you got to protect your opponent.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, you shouldn't be
Be
a
in the
wrestler.
ring, yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I'm kind of like, maybe I got a reputation as being a little snug when I'm in there and hitting
Nothing wrong
harder.
with that.
But I've never injured anybody, and if it was where I was injuring people, then I'd retire because that's not what wrestling's supposed to be about.
Exactly.
But it's also not ballet, so it's expected you're going to get hurt. So, like, do you ever just look at these people who are like, hey, man, you might want to back up. You're kind of hurting me. You're just like, we're wrestling. It's like
No, I mean, and maybe I'm a little stubborn like that, but one of the things I firmly believe is that in wrestling, no one is really going to complain about how hard you hit them because it makes them look weak.
yeah.
They're more likely to complain if you don't hit them hard enough, because then you're making them look bad. You're burying them because they're not selling. A true professional, and we talked about this a bit off the air, but a true professional is knowing how to kill the guy, make it look like you're killing the guy without actually killing him.
Yeah.
Because then we'd be investigated for murder. But that's the true art of professional wrestling. Is you can watch what we do and not be able to tell. Oh man, is he getting him for real there? Or and I like to play with that. I like when people will watch my matches and be like, oh man, that one looked rough. Oh, they're probably gonna go at it in the back or after the show.
That means you did your job.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
It's like it's like a magician going out there. You're doing your tricks. The people don't know how you're doing it, but they buy into it. They believe that you're sawing the woman in half. You're pulling a rabbit out of a hat. All that kind of stuff. Wrestling is the same way. You want to be as believable as possible, and believable in the sense of what you do in the ring or anytime you're in the public eye. If I'm going to a show, I'm in character from the moment the first fan sees me. That's me, and that's my product, and that's what I'm selling.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, hey, that might be the real me, because I like to blur the lines between who I am and what I portray. That's what the best do. I mean, you got to kind of be a version of yourself turned up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's all the greats have said that too. So, and confirmed by one of the greats.
Soon to be greats.
So
in wrestling, see that's interesting, because in wrestling, it's not so much about merit. I've had a lot of great matches with a lot of people that a lot of people haven't seen. If you follow me at Jeremy Prophet on Twitter, I might drop a match or two here or there.
Right
You can find tons of them if you search Jeremy Prophet on YouTube. That's my little sneak in the plug in there. Nice
Hey,
and smooth and seamless.
love it.
No problem.
right here
uh,
in Montreal, Canada.
LaSalle.
LaSalle.
And that's one thing. I've always been proud to represent LaSalle. Anytime I get a competent ring announcer, they ask me, where do you want to be billed from? I'll tell them LaSalle. It's only when they kind of take a liberty on their own and, I know he's from Montreal. Let's just say Montreal.
Yeah.
But, if I'm wrestling in Rhode Island or I'm wrestling in
don't know
New
LaSalle
Brunswick or whatever, they don't know LaSalle.
See, I'm a Verdun guy, so.
And I was just starting to like you.
Yeah, I know. I thought we could be friends. Apparently not.
Well, like I said, with wrestling, when it comes down to it, unfortunately, merit doesn't outweigh who you know.
Yeah.
It's a business that, unfortunately, I get people, they ask me, why aren't you in WWE already? Or, why aren't you signed somewhere? And it's because, look, let's face it, it's a business that's based on nepotism, on bribery, on trading favors, on, I'll scratch your back or I'll scratch your back. And I've never been a politician. And it's something that I'm not upset with. It's something I'm actually really proud of, because I've never stabbed anybody in the back. I've never been a guy who said, wow, this guy's going in there, he's killing it. I'm 10 steps behind him. I've literally never felt that in wrestling.
You can't be jealous in this.
I've never felt any kind of shred of jealousy, because it's like, all that means is, okay, now put me in the ring with that guy and watch the magic happen. It's like, this guy's great. Everyone thinks he's awesome. Put me in there with him and let's make it even better. I can add a bit of secret sauce to that spice to just make it nice and perfect. And he and I will make a lot of money together. The thing is that, unfortunately, your merit in wrestling doesn't go as far as your connections in wrestling. Yeah. So I've never been the guy who goes to the after parties. I've never been the guy who exchanges emails and messages and pleasantries.
You weren't part of the clique.
I'm not part of the clique. I'm always the guy who felt that what you do on screen, the way you look, the way you talk, the way you perform, was going to take you to that next level. But as the years go by and you see people pass you and you wonder, how is it that this person that looks like some schlub off the street, that can't say two words coherently and can barely run the ropes properly, is getting hired somewhere and making more money in this business than me. It's when you realize that, again, it's not about merit. It should be. Yeah. It should be objective, but unfortunately it's not. I was once told, if you want to be in an objective sport, maybe you should go run the 100-meter dash and try to be the fastest man in the world, because they can't take that away from you. The clock don't lie. Sure. But unfortunately, professional wrestling, time and time again, proves that this is the way to do it. It's who you know. Yeah. And maybe that's not a bad thing, but unfortunately, I think there's a lot of talented people out there, myself included, that, don't play that political game and, are where they are rather than where they should be.
Well, there's one guy that maybe comes to mind, something like that to me, like what because I know you're doing a lot of stuff with PCO lately.
Yep.
And he's one of the greats in Quebec, PCO, Pierre Ouellet. And I always see him complaining about them stealing stuff. Like Kevin Owens stole like the eye patch thing from him a couple of weeks ago on Raw or SmackDown, I think it was. So just to elaborate on where's his head, like, because I remember he was the Ring of Honor champion a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Then after that, he just drifted off. You know, I don't know what happened.
Well, you have your timeline a little backwards.
Backwards.
He's had an interesting career, and I'm fortunate to be working with him. He and I,
great guy.
He and I first crossed paths. I mean, Bruno back here. He and I went to go see the first IWS show I ever attended live, and we saw PCO, Pierre Ouellet, wrestle.
That's amazing. Man.
Actually, it wasn't the first time I saw him because I saw him with the Quebecers back at the Forum at the first show I went to live. I saw him against the Steiner brothers on 2 occasions at the Forum, and it's funny because Jacques always got all the attention in the team because Jacques was the more flamboyant. Jacques was the talker, and he already had a career before that as the Mountie. Jacques, who also trained me, by the way.
And before that, he was teaming with Ray, his brother.
Teaming with Ray also, and even going further back than that, his family was a wrestling family. Jacques was second generation. His uncle and his father were also wrestlers, and his brothers as well. So, he had a lot of things in his favor. That's where we talk about that. You can maybe call it nepotism, or whatever you want to say. But Jacques had a lot of the attention on him. But what I always noticed was that PCO was the one who did all the work. He was the one coming off the top with the cannonball. He was the one doing, the actual stuff that I like to watch.
He was the steak, and Jacques was the sizzle.
Was the sizzle, exactly.
He's a big boy too, and was he as big?
He was when I first saw him. He was over 300 pounds. I would say.
So going off the top rope at 300 pounds back then is like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, you don't see that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a Mandela effect or anything, but I swear I remember him doing a moonsault or like an acai moonsault, second row to the outside at a house show I went to. They were against the Godwins, and I remember him doing this moonsault to the outside. It was the most spectacular thing I had ever seen. Like, that a guy that big was able to do that, which is crazy because now, and he's like in his 50s, he's still doing moonsaults.
Really? Wow.
It's insane. Yeah. But what I appreciate about him is that I feel he and I, there's a lot of similarities there because he took a roundabout path after he left WWE. He decided to humble himself and come back to the independent scene, which Jacques never did. And he worked with guys who were the next generation, the Kevin Owens and so on. Yes. And he always kept up with the times. So he saw, okay, wrestling has evolved. Now guys are doing these types of matches, doing these kinds of things. So he evolved himself to do that.
Smart move.
And like I said to Bruno, I remembered when we went to go watch IWS, and a big draw for us was that he was going to be there. We remembered him from the Quebecers, and then we got there, we saw him perform. I didn't really start with IWS until later on, and he and I didn't cross paths too much, even though he had also kind of worked with Jacques, but he was on the way out while I was on the way in. Same thing with Kevin Owens. People think that because we were both trained by Jacques, we were both there and we trained together. Yeah. It's not true. There's only 2 weeks of overlap when Kevin was there and I was there. I saw Kevin on his way out. He's a guy I saw literally 2 weeks there, and that's it. I'm more cross paths with Kevin afterwards. But with PCO, he made a comeback back in... let me get the year right on that. I think back in 2015.
This is in Ring of Honor, right?
No, before Ring of Honor.
Before Ring of Honor.
He came back to IWS, and they put us in a tag team match together. It was 2015 or 2016. And we were in a tag team for one show. And that's where, we got to talk a bit more. We did that match. And then we ended up getting booked to face each other for the first time. Maybe about a year or two later.
You've never faced him before?
Up to that point, no.
Wow.
We'd never really crossed paths. We were just two different orbits. It's just a little side story here. In wrestling, people think that in wrestling we're all friends. We all know each other. So I'll meet people in my day-to-day life and be like, oh, you're a wrestler. Oh, I'm friends with this guy from like Rimouski who's a wrestler. I'm like, yeah, I don't know him. Or like,
oh, do you know Dangerous Bob from Shawinigan?
Yeah, it's like, oh, this guy who he shines my shoes or cleans my floors or whatever. He's a wrestler too, and I'm kind of like, oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, we did a show together a couple of years ago in wherever. And this, so it's like there are people in wrestling that I see when I was wrestling maybe every week. There's people I see once a month. There's people I see once a year.
Yeah.
And I have my circle of people that I talk with on a regular basis and all that. But other than that, I mean, we're not all friends in wrestling. We don't all know each other. We're coworkers. So that's the funny thing there. So me and PCO, we were in different orbits. We maybe wrestled for different companies. Promoters didn't want to pair us up on shows, that kind of thing. But then when we finally got put in the ring together, that's when we really, got to talking. And I always had tremendous respect for him and what he's done.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
the fact that at over 50 years old, he was able to go and win the Ring of Honor championship.
It was big. It was big.
Which
Everyone was talking
it wasn't
about
that long ago. I mean, he won it
a couple years ago.
No, it wasn't a couple of years ago. It was this last year, if not this year.
Yeah, a year or two ago.
Like 2019.
Yeah.
And he did that. And a lot of people, didn't think, they thought he was done years ago. And it's just a story to his perseverance. And now that I get the chance to work with him on the PCO Justice series, I'm just getting to know more about him. I've very rarely had mentors in wrestling. There are a few people who have decided to take me under their wing. There's few people that I've allowed to take me under their wing. Because easily when someone takes you under their wing, they could be having negative intentions, let's say. They could be giving you the hug to put the knife in your back. So me, I've never put a knife in anybody's back. I've never screwed anybody over in the wrestling business. I've always said, if I feel somebody is doing better than me, then I need to up my game. And I wish everyone would have that mentality, but people like to take shortcuts. Wrestling's kind of like a game of snakes and ladders. You got some guys, they take the shortcut, whether that be, saying bad things about this guy so the promoter doesn't like him anymore, whether that be trying to maybe injure a guy in a match so that now he can't perform and they need someone to take that spot. There's a lot of backstabbing and skullduggery that goes on in wrestling.
What goes behind the scenes there.
That's such a scumbag move, too, because you're trusting someone to not hurt you, and their plot is to go out there and hurt you to take your... It's so scummy.
Or to take his spot, or maybe a friend of his could take his spot. It's the politics.
Like, you got to be a real scumbag.
I mean, let's be real here. On a wrestling card, you can only have so many people. So we have 200, 300 wrestlers vying for spots here. Wrestling show, doesn't have more than 14, 15 matches unless it's, this past year's WrestleMania. They got to split it into 2 days. But some people, they want...
think you like that.
They want those spots. They want to get ahead. And these are the kinds of things you always have to be weary of. So maybe I've always been a little hesitant in my career to let people get close to me, because it's like, are you someone that I can trust, or are you someone who's, looking to step over me? And exactly. So with PCO, what I like is that it's someone who has a ton of knowledge, someone that I can learn from.
That's for sure.
But at the same time, he's a self-made man. He didn't have to rely on other people to get him to the Ring of Honor championship.
You get that,
and he didn't have
understand that.
And
he decided to do things his way. And he stayed the course. He started, the new character, putting out videos, getting the hype around himself. He's a self-made man. At the end of the day, when I do make it somewhere, I want to be able to say the same things. And now, fortunately, with him there, it's someone that can help to navigate certain uncertain waters of the wrestling business with years of knowledge. I mean, why would I turn down the opportunity to be mentored by somebody who has 30 plus years of wrestling knowledge? I mean, that's twice as much time in the business as me. So, having him, it's definitely a feather in my cap. And I learn every time I'm around him, every time I talk to him. And it's something that I try to do with anyone who has been to the dance, as they say. One of the last shows I did before everything shut down, I had a chance to work a couple of shows with Haku. Meng, you've probably seen those pictures there. And just the knowledge that this guy has for someone who's been around so long. For someone that, maybe a newer generation might say, oh, well, this guy, he's not doing moonsaults and high spots. And, what can I learn from him?
Or he wasn't a main event guy.
He doesn't need to.
There's a ton of stuff to be learned from these people. And it's being able to humble yourself, which I say humble myself. And it's not a bad thing. There's not a bad stigma behind that. And to learn and be a sponge from these people. I've always tried in my career to see people who have success and have been to the dance, and to take what makes them unique and say, you know what, okay, I got to fine tune my own attributes to be at that level. I got to be as intense as that person. I got to, look as good on a poster as that person. I got to be able to speak and generate interest in what I'm going to do.
All has to come
so that there's going to be people interested in it. Look, if I come on the Jofo podcast and, no one gives a damn about it, then I'm not doing my job, because you're having me here and I'm coming here to make sure that more people want to listen to your show. So it's a good business relationship. Working for a promotion, it's the same thing. You got to make sure that your value, whatever they're paying you to be there, that kind of thing, is equal to what you generate in terms of revenue. You can't just be another body on a show. You have to be someone who's going to come with something, some kind of secret sauce that's going to make that company better because they have you there. I was always a firm believer, and I don't want to rant too long here, but
go.
It's something that, again, I'm very big on. Wrestling should be about merit, but when it comes down to it, wrestling has to be profitable for a promoter.
Yeah, of course.
But I think that the second that you can look at a promoter and say, hey, look, you put me on your show, it's going to make you more money than the worst guy on your roster, that should open up a spot. Because really, why is this guy here curtain jerking? He's not going to make you 1 red cent when you can have someone who can come in here and maybe, be better than 3/4 of your roster. That's what it should be. I've always said you don't have to be better than the best guy.
No.
You just have to be better than the worst guy.
Yes.
So, if you ever decide to come back, and I'm hoping you do, hopefully maybe you show up with the TNT championship. I know Frank would love to see you beat Cody for it.
I would love that. I would love that. Not a big fan of Cody.
That would make his life.
I think that they're a little selective with who they choose. First of all, right now it's out of the question for anyone from Canada because of the border situation.
Yeah.
So that's something that's got to be taken into the equation. But no, I definitely think I could add a lot of value to any company. And I say objectively, appraise me against other people out there. Appraise me against my contemporaries. Find someone on your local independent scene that has my build, my physique, natural.
Yeah.
Pass all the drug tests in the world, no steroids, no nothing like that, 100% natural. Find a guy who can talk and generate as much interest, be as articulate in a wrestling promo as he would be if they want to have him on Jimmy Fallon, and can go in the ring, can do anything and everything in that ring.
All the check marks.
Can wrestle any aerial guy, technical guy, can brawl with the best of them. Like I always say, I want my calling card to be, give me the toughest.
Yeah.
Give me the guys no one wants to face. Everyone's scared to face because I ain't scared. I'm confident in my abilities. And when it comes down to it, I know that put me in there with anybody and I'll give you a show worth paying for. So that's what I say. It should be on merit. Put me in there, put me up against anyone. Appraise me against people who already work there.
Cody Rhodes.
Fuck, he's good at selling himself. Hey, shit, I'm all jacked up for him to fight somebody now.
Wrestling is a business. Wrestling is a business of selling.
Yeah.
But you can't just be a good salesman. You got to deliver the goods. You
Yes.
got to be salesman and delivery man. Meaning you talk the people into the building, and then when they see you, they say, you know what, that guy,
guy's the real deal.
That guy can back up at least 80% of what he says.
Yeah.
That's what it should be.
Yeah.
Because even if you can't back up everything, you got to back up most of it.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel. I maybe haven't been given the opportunity to do that, but watch any of my interviews, anything like that. It's always
your
about
shoot interviews on YouTube. Yeah.
yeah, and even my wrestling interviews. That's what it's about. It's about put me in there with this person and see what comes of it.
Yeah.
I kind of want to, in a way, with my wrestling, my wrestling promos.
Prove me wrong.
With my wrestling promos, what I should say is that I always want to get the aspect of this being a fight, this being a competition, and I like taking some digs at my opponents.
Yeah.
Some people believe you shouldn't totally bury your opponent.
But in the right way, right?
I think it's sink or swim. I think you put someone on the microphone against me. Let's see what they bring to the table. Let's have us a rap battle.
Yeah.
I always say my biggest inspiration on a microphone is actually Ice Cube.
Really?
It's not anyone in wrestling. It's Ice Cube.
Really?
Because they would say of Ice Cube, and I believe this is 100% true of Jeremy Prophet, when Ice Cube would spit a verse about somebody, people would not look at that person the same way. They would not be able to look at them the same way. That person would not be able to draw money anymore, would not be able to sell albums no more because Ice Cube could diss them so strongly, point out their weaknesses that nobody believes in that person anymore. And that's what I believe I can bring on the microphone is put me in there with the best trash talkers. If they're not on their game, if they're slipping in the gym, in the ring, whatever it may be, I will point that out to them, and I will get the best of them.
Unbelievable.
So, not to say that I'm a one-trick pony, but prove me wrong.
But
At this point, just cue No Vaseline now. Just start bumping that in here now. I feel like that's the only song we need to hear.
we never asked you, how did the Jeremy Prophet name come about? Where did you say that's gonna be my name? And it wasn't certainly in the LWF. You didn't get that name. That's for sure.
Well, Jeremy is my real name.
Yes.
That's my birth God-given name. And I knew when I wrestled I wanted to be Jeremy. My whole thing was I want to be the first Jeremy in wrestling.
Because one name, just one Jeremy. Nothing.
I mean, how many Jeremys can you think of in wrestling?
I don't.
Like
I
I
don't think
think
there's any-
Eric Young's real name is Jeremy, but I mean I
Okay.
want to be the first on-screen Jeremy, which is
Yeah.
why I love the fact when I did SmackDown, I got to keep Jeremy as my name. I really
Amazing,
like that.
amazing.
I think one of the Young Bucks was also Jeremy in TNA for
Okay,
a
I
while.
didn't know that.
You know, I mean, your viewers
How come you didn't
there,
know that?
you know, your viewers in social media. I'm sure they'll call me out on it
You
if I'm
should have
wrong.
known that.
100%.
But I always wanted Jeremy. And it wasn't initially supposed to be Prophet. On the show
Okay.
that I ended up doing, this is back in 2005 in a company called MWF out of Valleyfield, which I ended up purchasing a couple of years back. I was about to do my first match, and they didn't have a name for me. So it's like when I wrestled with Jacques Rougeau's, I was the Spider-Man for Jacques Rougeau. So obviously now I'm me. I'm my own identity. I'm not going to be Spider-Man.
Right.
So like, what do we call you? And this is like, didn't even occur in my mind. I'm going out there for the match. The first guy in the match is about to go out. So it's a four-way match. First guy is being told he's on deck. You got about 2-3 minutes. We're cueing your music and go. And the ring announcer comes back and he's like, okay, I know your name. I know your name. You're making your debut. What's your name? And the name I wanted wasn't Prophet. I actually wanted Prophecy.
Okay.
I wanted to
Jeremy Prophecy.
I wanted to be the Prophecy.
Okay.
Oh.
The Prophecy. And I said, call me the Prophecy. And he's like, well, I got to announce it in French. And this is a guy named Crush was his wrestling name, not the Crush was in WWE.
Okay.
I like throwing out names of people because I have a really good memory. I like showing it off. But this guy, Crush, Pascal was his real name,
Okay.
was the ring announcer, great ring announcer, great, pretty underrated wrestler. So he's like, well, we can't say that in French. Well, what does that translate to? And I'm like, you know, I don't know. And he's like, how about I just call you the Prophet? I'm like, yeah, that'll work.
That works.
So I was the Prophet. Now, I wasn't always like just the Prophet. Jeremy Prophet was something that came into the equation when I went to do a tour for a promoter in he was based out of Manitoba. So it's a tour on like native reserves in Manitoba, Saskatchewan. He did shows all over. So I was there for the Manitoba Saskatchewan loop, which to this day it's really cool to get to say I wrestled in Saskatchewan because there's not much wrestling that goes on there.
There's not much anything that goes on.
And I mean, Manitoba's produced some pretty good wrestlers. You know, Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, yeah, Roddy Piper
Yep.
too. But so on that tour, the promoter, he said, like, I don't like calling you the Prophet. He's like, you know, these people on the reserves, they're very religious people. You know, calling you the Prophet, it might seem a little sacrilegious.
Yeah.
And then he's like, so what's your name? And I'm like, well, my name's Jeremy. And he's like, okay, well, we'll call you Jeremy Prophet. And I don't know what it was about it, but
Just sounded good.
it just
rolled off the tongue.
it
works.
just sounded good. It's just one of those names in wrestling. Like I always liked names with like biblical references. Like that's why I wanted like Prophet. I always liked Chris Jericho because it was like the Walls of Jericho.
Yes.
I like the sound of that. So like I kind of wanted a name that fit with that. So like. Yeah, and Jericho was a big inspiration to me as a wrestler too, from way back. Cain came from the Bible too. Yeah, that's a good one. And so that's where Jeremy Prophet came from, and I just like the sound of it. And nowadays I'm Jeremy Prophet. I'm also called Black Dynamite.
Black Dynamite, yeah, of course.
Hell of a story behind Black Dynamite too. That was more recent.
Okay.
That was when we started the persona of Black Dynamite, which is maybe a little bit different than Jeremy Prophet, although nowadays they're kind of merging together. But Black Dynamite I was told by IWS, you know, we want to make you this hybrid MMA fighter type character. I think it came from the fact that they say I looked like Benson Henderson. And I don't feel I look like many people, but I've seen Benson Henderson. I'm actually a fan of his fighting. I knew who he was. And I mean, you don't see a lot of brothers with hair like us, but you know, Benson Henderson was a bit of an inspiration for the character. I always said Black Dynamite was like a mix of Benson Henderson, Mike Tyson, and Floyd Mayweather.
Okay.
That's what I see Black Dynamite as. And so they wanted me to come up with a name. So the initial name they had said was, we want to call you something like the War Machine, because there was a fighter by the name of War Machine who did some, it's pretty touchy to talk because he did some really bad things. So obviously they couldn't, And so obviously they couldn't call me that, nor would we want to do that. So they said come up with another name. And I happened to be going on a tour for Grand Prix Wrestling for Rene Dupree and Emile Dupree. And one of the guys on the tour, a guy by the name of the Cuban Assassin Jr., because his father was a wrestler in the Maritimes, we just happened to be in the locker room and we're telling jokes, me and a couple of the guys, and they just decided today's going to be a fun day. You guys can wrestle whoever you want. And he's like, yeah, why don't we just change our names while we're at it? You know, we'll make this guy White Thunder and he'll be Black Dynamite. And it's just kind of one of those moments like,
Oh.
it's got a good ring to it, Black Dynamite.
I'm gonna take that.
Like everyone else is kind of laughing and I'm kind of there. I'm thinking, I'm like, no, that's that's got a good ring to it. And you know, the moment that really sealed it for me as a name was I had been using it, I think, for about two, three shows, and I was at my mother's, and someone was there, and they were asking me about my wrestling. I'm like, well, what's your wrestling name? And I'm like, well, I've been Jeremy Prophet for X amount of years, but as of late, they call me Black Dynamite. And my mother kind of stopped. She's like, I like that name, Black Dynamite. I'm on board.
You know, if Mama approves, then it's,
Yes.
aces across the board.
That was, you know, my mom, proud black woman from the islands, and she approved of that name. So yeah, I like both names. You know, I'll always be Jeremy Prophet, but you know, Black Dynamite's got a good ring to it too.
Yeah. So you fought. What I've seen, you fought Carlito. You fought Rey Mysterio.
I did fight Rey Mysterio.
Mysterio,
Yeah, fought him at Metropolis.
Before he lost his eye, though.
Yeah, before he had two eyes.
Yeah. He
I
had two eyes at the
I
time.
saw the comment on Twitter. He said Daniel Cormier had Stipe Miocic. I don't know.
Stipe Miocic.
Yeah, they had a better eye for an eye match
Oh God.
than the actual eye for an eye match.
Yeah.
He's blind in his left eye now.
He is, detached retina, something like that.
Crazy, yeah, it was crazy.
Hopefully his sight comes back. I was a big fan of DC. I made it a goal this week. First of all, I discovered Twitter through doing the videos for PCO. Because we want to get the word out there. We want people checking that out. We want
you
everyone
brought
to
up the
share
Justice
those.
series.
Yeah, the PCO
For
Justice
those who
series.
don't know,
More or less on
if you
Facebook.
if you want to tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hashtag PCO Justice. Like I said, you can follow me at Jeremy Prophet. You can follow him at PCO is not human. And every Monday, we're putting out an episode. So that's been sort of like what's replaced wrestling for me during this pandemic era, has been doing these
But it's getting the
videos.
juices flowing, right? It's getting the
Yeah.
I want to get back in there now. You know,
I mean, it's like wrestling, and I love acting.
Yeah.
I've had a few different brushes with acting, and I love acting. I love being in front of the camera, and I love having the creativity to have some input in that, and we pool ideas together. The creative process is just as much fun as what you see on screen.
For sure.
And we're all having fun there, and people are taking notice of it. And it's me getting to showcase a side of me that people maybe haven't seen.
Yes.
And there's a lot of good surprises to come. I mean, we filmed some stuff last week that hasn't even come out yet. It might not even be out this week.
Okay.
But a lot of fun stuff.
No, I look forward to it every Monday. It's pretty. It's entertaining.
If I'm allowed to let the cat out of the bag, we're actually moving into a full-on studio.
Really.
So we've kind of been just shooting it here, there, and everywhere. But now we're going to be moving the show into a studio. So the budget is going up, production's going up. It's going to be amazing. And I think it's great for fans of PCO who won't be able to see him in Ring of Honor because even though they're starting up again, there's a ban on international talent. That's not on Ring of Honor. That's on the American government. So unfortunately, he won't be performing on the first couple of shows they're going to be doing. But you get to see him every Monday.
That's it. He's
and
building
you
his
get to,
character.
No,
Yeah, he's building his character.
keeping fresh.
yeah, you get to see him
Staying
battle
out there.
me.
The fans are still seeing him.
Who is the guy that's always with the little that guy there?
Destro.
Is that his manager?
D
or-
Destro. He is his manager in and out of the ring.
There's something about him. Just like I like him. I draws.
Oh, he's very popular. He he did a lot to help get PCO to where he is now.
Okay.
He to me, the metaphor of he brought him back to life. It's not far from the truth.
Yeah.
Because this guy helped motivate him. He helped make these videos and create this persona that got him to where he is, that caught people's interest. It was the kind of thing where at first he started doing it and people weren't sure. Some people were mocking him for it, but then it caught on and it caught the attention of the right places and the right people. He ends up getting to Ring of Honor where he is now, and I think he'll be there for still a little while. And who knows what the future holds. And I see this as a great opportunity because it's giving me that same platform to work alongside him, so that maybe the right people can see what I have to offer. Much like being on here with you guys is also doing. It's giving me a platform.
Yeah.
I never embraced. I never felt the need to brag about how good I am. It's like you want to know how good I am. Come to a show.
That's it. Check me out. That's it.
See what I can do. I don't have to tell people how good I am.
Exactly.
See me and appraise me for yourself. But now, unfortunately, I realize that we're in an era where trees can fall in forests and nobody's there to hear it. So the power of social media, the power of taking every opportunity to come here, talk to you guys. Same as if they wanted me for the 6 o'clock news. Same as if they wanted to have me on Joe Rogan's podcast. Whatever it may be. There seems to be this pattern of the more you talk about yourself, the more people will hear about it, and that will finally put you in the spotlight that you should
where
be
you
in.
want to be, exactly.
So it took a while to learn those kinds of things, but now I don't look at opportunities and say, nah, I'm not going to go talk with you guys. You know, what's that going to do for me? People want to know about me wrestling.
Well,
you know,
Bruno was
watch
the
me
most
wrestle.
excited to hear that
And
you were coming on.
he's
Especially you guys are big Papa Pump fans, and you fought him as well.
Yeah.
3 matches.
And you say you don't want to brag. You showed up with 3 fucking world title belts. I don't want to brag about myself, but guys, here are my title belts
Well,
that I won.
felt there should be something to actually represent me here. I could have brought a couple of T-shirts and all that, but then I just look like I'm trying to make a cheap dollar on merch. And you know, not to toot my own horn here, but I mean, I've never been a big merch guy. You know, I've never been a guy who says, you know, fans, I need your money here to pay my rent. It's like, no, I'm a self-made man in many aspects of my life. I kind of wanted to bring this here just to give a little window dressing to what I'm all about, because you bring me on here, the average person, okay, well, who's this Jeremy guy? Yeah, he kind of looks like something, but, you know, what are his merits?
Here they are.
I
right
hold
on
these
the
3
table.
right now. You want to come see me at the International Wrestling Syndicate Tag
hold
Team
up.
Champion right here. You know, show that plays on the Fight Network, on RDS, Fight Network UK,
Somebody had
all over.
Somebody they said that they saw posters in Hochelaga of the IWS on like you know those on the sidewalk there, those big posters there. So
Billboard?
it's gonna come back, maybe. I don't know, but
Maybe slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely.
We got to just keep making noise about it. We
That's
got to
it,
keep
exactly.
we got to keep writing letters. We got to keep we got to take action. And that's one thing that maybe I could spearhead the movement. I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm someone who believes in taking action, on not just sitting there and hoping things fix themselves.
No.
But you know, the more we get the word out there, the more someone's got to listen. If you have a forum here, you guys can you know,
Yes.
reach people
Of
with
course,
this.
of course.
Then you know it's going to get to the ears of the right people. It's going to get to the Legos and the all of these people who have the power to actually do something about this, to know that, hey, look, there's a bunch of us here who are stuck not being able to make our living because of these unfortunate circumstances. And before I forget, IWS Tag Team Champion. This is a company called La Lutte C'est Vrai, who have been very accommodating to me. I'm very proud of this championship. Great company. They put on shows all over around the Laval area. And this one, champion of all of Canada, done shows all over for this title, fought anyone and everyone. And I think I'm going to be holding on to it for a pretty long time.
have you ever went to bed with one of these belts around your waist?
No,
or?
I'm not that much of a mark. I think that you got to separate business and personal. So you know, even young child me buying the foam belts at the events, you know, I wasn't taking those to bed with me. But knowing that these things, you know, they got to be earned. They're not
of course.
they're not handouts.
Exactly.
They should be earned, and you should be the best. And until the next best comes along, then this should
Take
be
it
yours.
away from you, exactly.
absolutely.
Exactly.
So now that from a fan's perspective, how do you feel about the rest live, like not live wrestling, but like Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, just no fans?
It's interesting you say live wrestling, because I actually think the fact that things are changing back to live wrestling is utter stupidity. Now, I don't know why they have to go back live, but this is a great opportunity to fine-tune their product and make it as great as possible. What I don't understand is, how is it that you have people being tested for viruses that could test positive and be pulled from a broadcast, and to a point where certain tapings have to be done on other days because of the impact that has on the show by people who move the ratings dial. And now we're going to go back live. So what happens in the same situation? Somebody tests positive. They're scheduled for a big segment. Like I saw the preview for Raw. I think they have Shawn Michaels going to do a segment with Randy Orton. Well, what if one of those guys tests positive? Then what happens? Then you've just made some false promises to the people. So I actually don't think wrestling should be live. I think that AEW is doing things the right way, because they're taping their shows 2 weeks at a time. What that means, the guys go there, they film their episodes of Dark and Dynamite and whatever it may be, and then they have the 14 days to actually quarantine, so that they know that they're not going to be coming back and getting sick.
They were doing it like that.
It's the perfect opportunity to do that. It almost should be imposed on them to do things that way for everybody's safety, and also for the fact that now you can sit back, you have 2 shows in the can that you can edit, you can cut out the botches, you can cut out the flub lines and promos, all that stuff. Instead, you're going to go back live, where anything can go wrong, anything can happen. Where these guys are rusty, they're not working house shows, so they don't get that practice in 3-4 times a week, and then you're sending them out there in front of no fans, where they don't even really want to put in any effort, because it really sucks to wrestle in front of no fans. But you know, you're wrestling in front of millions of people at home that are going to judge you the same way, not knowing these kinds of things. I think it's absolutely ridiculous
Yeah.
that they want to go back to live TV. AEW had it right with the 2 weeks, and then if you want to throw in another live one when you know that everyone is healthy and they're good to go, and you're going to be able to deliver on what you've promised, I think that system works a lot better.
And it worked out well for them too, especially when John Moxley had to.
I struggle with that one too.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
But when Renee Young tested positive for the virus, and then they had to pull him and Brian Cage from the I guess it's pay per view. We'll call it a pay per view.
Yeah, it was.
But they did it well though. They pulled it off. But I don't know, it's just weird watching wrestling without fan reaction. It just doesn't work for me. Like they did the first one with Austin on the 316 day. And
it was weird.
He's very audience, like he's very involved with the audience.
Needs the audience.
Like he doesn't. Well, everybody needs the audience. Like it just didn't. It was weird. I don't like it. It works for UFC.
I mean, but it's a different thing when you compare UFC to WWE, because it's kind of like if you compare combat sports to theater.
Yeah.
You know, some of the best TV shows are filmed in front of next to nobody. You know, Seinfeld, live studio audience of 30, 40 people. Did some of the most memorable stuff on TV.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'm being a little biased and keeping it in the same lane, but Curb Your Enthusiasm, filmed in front of nobody. Hilarious show.
Yeah.
Awesome. I doubt there are many people around with, Breaking Bad or Sons of Anarchy or any of the other, top popular shows. So in a theater type thing, it kind of works. When it comes to a small audience, you should be trained to be able to handle that. Now, competitive sports, they always talk about the sixth man, like in basketball, where the audience gives you that extra adrenaline. They give you that extra energy to power through and to want to score. You know, like look at the Canadians.
Yeah.
You know, the Bell Center, one of the loudest buildings. The people really get into it, and it can often have a positive effect. I mean, I think I heard George St. Pierre talk about it on the UFC broadcast, where he said fighting Matt Serra in Montreal with the crowd behind him, it gave him that energy, it made him invincible. And that's what it's like as a wrestler. We're in there, we're taking bumps, we're taking bruises. Everything hurts. This is the biggest misconception. If you people have never, if you people think that wrestlers were in there, we're wrestling on a freaking trampoline, everything in there hurts, especially if you're in there with me. But when you have the people and the reaction is there, it's like it gives you this invincibility. It spikes your adrenaline, and you can do almost anything. It's like in a sport, you need that. You need the people. And so even fighters in the UFC, I'm sure there's a lot that if they were in front of crowds, it would change a lot of the outcomes. It would motivate them more. I even was thinking, like, seeing a lot of the fights at the Apex. You seem like you're a UFC guy. I'm a very big UFC guy. You should see how I troll people on Twitter. There, it's my favorite thing to do. That's why I love Twitter. It gives me the chance to go on there and interact and make fun of all the fighters that I love. But I was kind of noticing that I feel like at the Apex, there's not as many knockouts. And I think part of the knockout effect is you eat this big shot and the people are just like, oh, like all in unison. And that kind of hits you as like a second wave. Once someone lands a good strike with no one there, with no ambiance, it's kind of these guys just trading back and forth. And, it's like watching tennis or watching golf, that kind of thing. I think the sports need the people, whereas the more theatrical, you don't really need the people for that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just find it weird. Like some spots you need a crowd for, like Big Show's spot where he'll shush everybody and then he'll land that big chop. Obviously, the whole thing is the sizzle, like we were talking about, is him shushing the crowd and the whole crowd going quiet. Whereas now, if he does it, there's no crowd. He doesn't have to shush anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, audience participation is a big part of it.
Yeah,
it's, like when Scotty Too Hotty used to do the worm and the people would participate, or
the
Rock
what chants.
doing the people's elbow. Yeah, exactly. The what chants, all of those things.
Yeah.
It's good to have an audience. It's just that I really feel like with WWE, they have a lot of controls in place.
Yeah.
So, for example, I watch these broadcasts. I can tell when it's taped or when it's live because the way they dub in reactions, and sometimes they overdo it a little bit.
They're notorious for that.
What I wonder is if they let the performers hear those reactions, which I doubt they do.
I don't think so.
Because, if you watch WWE main event, they really don't give a damn about that show.
No.
It sounds like those guys are wrestling in front of nothing because it's a C-level show. Whereas you watch Raw, it sounds like they're in a 10,000 person arena because they're dubbing that in. The crowd plays a huge. I dare anyone out there in wrestling to tell me the crowd does not play a huge role when you are in the ring.
Exactly.
When you're doing a backstage skit, again, you don't really need a crowd for that kind of thing. But when you're in there working, taking bumps, taking punishment, you feel those bumps so much more when there aren't many fans.
Yeah.
You know, and they're also there to validate what you're doing. And this is a big thing with WWE and with wrestling in general is you don't really know who's over right now.
No.
If you think about it, you watch any of these shows, the only person that I feel they're trying to impress in WWE is Vince McMahon.
Yes.
They put an angle out there. It might be terrible, but if he's got a big smile on his face watching it, then they're
matter.
happy. That
Exactly.
secures their job, their paycheck. He's deciding who's over. Because if you look at the reaction to people online for certain things, like, you know, the eye for an eye, let's say,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily line up with the direction the company goes in.
Yeah,
Because
it's a
people
little
might
weird,
hate it,
a little weird,
but then other people within the company with power and stroke, they're the ones that are impressed. So right now, all you're seeing on TV is what is impressing the officials in the company. That's pretty much it. Personally, though, on a personal level, I made that comment about the eye versus eye match. I actually enjoyed the match for the simple fact that they did it live.
Yes.
Yeah.
That made the match. It wasn't a bad match.
The match was
It was a
great.
good, violent
The
match.
match was great.
I mean, you got Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins.
Just
So you're going to
the
have
end- the
it's
ending to
entertaining.
me was-
It was a good match.
Yeah.
It was violent. It was athletic. It was like all the things I like in a match as a fan. And they did it live. There was no CGI. There was no, he goes
did all that
backstage.
thing.
It wasn't a
and,
cinematic.
They did it live.
Yeah.
Are you into the cinematic matches, or you just like you said, like I rather see an eye for an eye match, like no CGI, no cinematic.
I'm it's hit and miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I love the Boneyard match with AJ
Oh.
Styles and Undertaker, but AJ Styles is someone who, in my book, can do no wrong. I really hate that I never had a chance to have a match with him. We're on a couple of shows together.
Okay.
Great conversations, he and I. Never had a match. I think he's one of the best, if not the best, in the world. A lot of what I try to do in the ring will resemble AJ because he's a guy who's athletic, he's a good size, he's tough, aggressive, handles himself well on the mic. I think all the attributes that he has are attributes that I'd like to have as well.
If you go with the Bret Hart tributes, like you said, the three things, I think
AJ would be
he's
through the
up
roof on
yeah,
there.
through the roof.
And it definitely justifies,
Yeah.
you know, his spot that he's had for the
Yeah.
last couple of years.
Exactly.
And that match he did with The Undertaker, I thought that was a masterpiece.
Yeah.
But everything about that, the build-up alone,
Yeah.
too, was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yep. I totally agree. I hope it ends up being the last match Taker does because it was a great send-off. As for some of the other cinematic matches, a lot of it I could take or leave it because, like, you know, the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits, I felt like it had its moments, but it dragged on.
Yeah.
It insulted the intelligence of wrestling. It kind of went too far into this glorified nerd territory.
Yeah.
See, the Bray Wyatt John Cena one, to me, it wasn't even really a match.
Yeah, I
it
think
was just a segment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while I found parts of it entertaining and creative, it just took me out of the suspense of it because now it just looks like here are two people who are working together. They're working together to do something entertaining, but at the same time, is WWE going to be they're going to like retcon it and say this is just a big acid trip that happened? Everything that happened inside the Performance Center now didn't actually happen and let us in on that? Or, you know, are they going to try to portray this as its actual canon in their show? That's one of the ones that I more didn't like. I think there's a place for cinematic. I just think that it needs to be done right and with respect to the realism of professional wrestling, which I think the Boneyard match was excellent for that.
It's still wrestling too, right? Like everyone has to remember we're still wrestling here. Like, you know, so.
And just going back to what we were talking about, how the fans make a difference in the match. Like, if you go back to, like, think WrestleMania 13, the Bret Hart, Steve Austin match, the double turn.
Yep.
Imagine if they had no fans for that.
Well,
We'd have a completely different world, I find.
yeah, we don't know how the fans would react to that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's, again, I've said for a long time, and I used to do a show just like this on the radio, and one of the things, one of my big takeaways from it that we used to always say was, at this point, and this is going back to like 2010, 11, around the time I was, you know, almost hired by WWE, we would say, at this point, Vince McMahon has made so much money. He's made more money than he can spend in his entire life. He doesn't care what he puts on TV.
No,
he really doesn't care. He's made more money than he can spend. He just wants stuff that's going to entertain him.
Yeah.
He does not, you know, I'm not going to curse on the show, but I mean, like, he
can if you want.
I fucking will, though.
Nah, he just he wants to see what entertains him,
Yeah.
and people work there to entertain him.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you want job security and all those things, then you'll do it like that. You'll read every word scripted to the
Yes,
T
man.
and
Yes,
all those
man.
things. You know, I haven't been privy with too much of the ins and outs, but I was, you know, pretty close to being hired by that company, their developmental system, a couple appearances at TV, to see the way it works there, to see people walking on eggshells, to see people acting in such an absurd way from how you act in the real world. And this is why I say with wrestling, it's some people take it too seriously. Some people don't take it seriously enough. But to me, I'm like, look, in a way, you have to be a smart, street smart kind of person to see through a lot of the carny nonsense that goes on, because there are things that would happen there that to me, I'd be like, you know what, man, I look at everybody there like they're the same person that puts on their pants one leg at a time, that, you know, I would only have treat me a certain way if we saw each other in the streets, and just a lot of stuff that goes on, a lot of lines that are crossed. And it's not just WWE. It's not fair to say just WWE, but the professional wrestling business.
Yes.
There's a lot of carny BS that goes on, and you know, we saw it with like the speaking out movement, with like all these people now who've finally been outed for how they are, and there's so many more dirty, dark secrets of wrestling that should be brought to the forefront. But all I know is, for me, I can only speak for myself and say that I've always looked at wrestling as these are people just like me who have achieved a modicum of success that puts them in the eyes of certain people who in the audience are maybe, you know, only 5 to 10% less advanced in life than they are, ahead of those same people. And so when I meet people in wrestling, it's like, okay, yeah, you may have worked for this company, you may have done this, you may have done this, but, you know, you as a human being, it's only, you know, because it's only because I guess God decided that you'd get to this place but before me or instead of me, that you are where you are. But on a human being level, you know, you and I, we could be meeting outside of here, and this conversation would go a lot differently, but I ain't going to treat you any differently because you're a human being just like me.
Exactly.
See, I've always been someone who's kind of had a bit of a chip on my shoulder, but I never stopped seeing people in wrestling as other people like me that came from the same, maybe worse, maybe more.
Is Hannibal the same way? Like, is he come from nothing to where he is at, because he's built an empire like on,
well, really,
on YouTube.
That's Hannibal's story to tell.
Yeah.
But I've known him for a long time, and he's been a good friend. He's been my greatest rival in the ring.
Yeah.
We've beaten the
You guys had
snot
some
out of each other.
Great matches, I have to admit.
And you know, people don't know a lot about him, but I think that's by design. And I think it's unfortunate, because I think if people knew more about him, they wouldn't be so judgmental. And I think also he embraces the Hannibal persona.
Yes.
You see Hannibal at a show, at a merch table. You see him, you know, he is Hannibal.
That's why I love him. That's why I like him.
It's a thing in wrestling where a lot of these guys, you know, they want to be the gentle giant.
Yeah.
They want to be the one that, oh, the people will say, oh, well, you know, he's mean in the ring, but he's a good guy outside of it. I think it takes a special something to not want to be that, to want to be true to what you portray and sell people.
Yeah.
And so I'm not here to say he's nothing. In fact, I would be lying if I said he's nothing like what you see on screen. Because believe me, he's very much what you see on there.
Pay for.
Yeah.
But I don't believe anyone is 100% what they portray on TV. I think you can get 99% close to it, and that's about it. Even with me, you know, I don't think anyone is 100% themselves. But you want to protect the business. You want to protect the people who want to believe. No one wants to see Batman and the Joker, you know, giving each other high fives and, you know, laughing about how they fooled people into thinking that, you know, they weren't enemies or were enemies, that kind of thing. And it's something that's kind of lost in wrestling, that nowadays you can go online, you can watch an interview like this where people might say, hey, you know that Jeremy, he's not that much of a bad guy. And, you know, okay.
Well,
fine.
that's how it is right now, right? Because remember back in high school, we had to literally run to the benches and just watch Raw last night. Did you see what happened? It's not like we could have went on our phones or on our computer at that time and look at the internet and say, "Hey, look, this is what's going to happen next week."
CF 12 hotline.
Well, there you go. Yeah,
You had to call that.
That's
Yeah, if you missed it, you missed it.
But just to say, yeah, if you missed it, you missed it, or you had to go ask your friend what happened. You know, so
Yeah.
the LWF. Yes, we all know.
What's the LWF? I've never heard of that.
So LaSalle Wrestling Federation is doesn't exist because I did not pick the Prophet.
Because
Jeremy Prophet. You're gonna make me eat my words now.
Oh,
Can't even look the guy in the eye now.
yeah, yeah,
He's gonna
yeah.
be waiting for me outside. He knows where I live.
I think you told that story on here. I remember
Yeah.
seeing.
I think the very first
Yeah.
episode we heard all about it,
Yes, Kyle.
and we had Danny Malazzi chirping us in the comments.
Do you remember Danny Malazzi?
Yeah, the big show.
Big show, yeah.
I tell you, I got a great memory. I remember all that like it
Yeah.
was yesterday.
It was
It's,
great. It was cool and it was fun. But just to say, if I had to do it all over again, I think I would go with you this time.
Well, I appreciate that, but like I said to you off the air, who knows where my career would have gone? I mean, I had visions of grandeur. I was like,
Who knows?
you're
Who knows?
gonna give me that opportunity when you did that second show
Yeah.
and you had a ring, you had an actual ring, not that thing that was made up of volleyball
Yes,
nets and
yes.
all that other garbage, but the one where you had the ring. I was like, I want to get in there,
Yeah.
and I would. I don't think he had any. Bruno had any gym classes with me, but I used to like rush to get changed in gym because they had the gymnasium mats,
Yeah.
which weren't that stiff, and I would love stacking them up and climbing onto them and doing like moonsaults and swantons and 450s and all kinds of stuff that like
In high school.
Yeah.
I the stuff that I can't imagine how I did it without hurting
Yeah.
myself. But I would do all that, and I had all these ideas of I'm going to go in there, I'm going to do that, I'm going to kind of like what it was the first time I stepped in a wrestling ring. I was
Yeah.
just like, I want to go to the top rope and do all the stuff I've been doing on my
Let's
parents'
see
couches.
what it is.
Yeah.
Like
And looking back at it, I probably would have hurt myself. I probably wouldn't have known the right techniques. I probably would have had an ego.
I'm
who
just
knows?
glad that I was a part of your wrestling journey.
No, yeah.
To
No-
the greatness you are now.
Nothing beat going to gym class and seeing those thick crash mats, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they have those like springboard things. I remember when we had those.
Well, there was the ones that
we
were like
pulled up
this.
the tiles and we'd do like the Shane McMahon where you'd run and jump and then. Remember we used to have that,
Yeah, that chair
spot
shot.
where he'd, yeah.
that they put in the video game and No Mercy.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's-
Fantastic.
We were alive at a time in high school that it was the Attitude Era, and
We
it
grew
was-
up in the best time
we-
for wrestling.
Yeah, exactly.
We're technically the only ones still watching Raw every Monday.
yeah, exactly.
And it's
exactly.
a chore now.
Yeah.
It's a goddamn
That
chore.
demographic. But is there anything else you want to plug or anything?
What
or,
can where can the people reach you? Where can they see you?
Well, I'm really trying hard now to gain the Twitter followers at Jeremy Prophet, real simple, all
Yeah.
one word. Really going hard on there. Someone kind of broke it down to me because before I was very anti-Twitter. I have like 5,000. I don't think I can even accept
too.
friends on Facebook. But they can still try. I'm sure there's still a few spots. But
Not anymore.
with I didn't want to be one of these people going on there and posting gym selfies. Like there is no gym selfie of me. Most of those pictures people take are doctored anyways. But Twitter, someone broke it down to me where they said the difference between Twitter and Instagram, those kinds of things, that Instagram is more about posting pictures and all that.
Yeah.
Twitter, you got to really be witty and you got to be a good writer and you got to be all those.
You gotta be on. You
Which
gotta be
I
on.
am.
Yeah.
Like my actual education is in journalism. I am a good writer.
Okay.
And when it comes to promos, like I said, anyone wants to step up. We can go
Bruno?
at it.
Bruno?
We can go at it. But believe me, I'm sure you got more of a glass house to be throwing stones in than I do. So I like the idea that it opens up that you can throw out a few funny things there. Like, I was really ripping on Sean O'Malley, who lost his fight, thank God, last night. I don't like him at all. And I threw a few jabs his way. It's getting a lot of likes, a lot of retweets, a lot of those things. And I like that. I mean, because I'm a big fan of the UFC and of mixed martial arts. I have been for a long time. And obviously with wrestling. And if I can use this to get more eyes on me, that people
Yeah, why
can
not?
can
Yeah,
see what
so-
I can do. I've always said that with me, it's just a matter of when. Look, it took PCO till he was in his 50s to make it to Ring of Honor.
Exactly.
I don't think it should take me that long. I feel that it's a case of opportunity. You don't know
Yes.
where your opportunity is going to come from.
Yes.
You don't know who's going to see you in
You
your
never
everyday
know.
life
You just
or
never
online.
know. You got to continue and
It's really just that. I'm like, I've always said I could be a walk-on.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I was a pretty good baseball player. I always felt I could have been in the major leagues.
Yeah.
That was where my careers were going when I was playing baseball. I wish hockey were close to that, but unfortunately my hockey talent wasn't as high as my baseball talent.
Randy Savage
But,
as well.
Randy Savage was a baseball player, yeah.
really, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
For the Cardinals, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I always said, like, I felt I was so good at baseball with the unique things that I was good at doing. I could go to a walk-on tryout for the Blue Jays or the Expos or whatever,
Okay.
and I could impress enough, turn enough heads that it would be something. I feel that with wrestling, it's the same thing of, give me this opportunity. Put me on AEW Dark. I'll go on there. I will do something that I can get myself over.
hear that,
Put
Cody?
me, well, I'm not one to see. I'm too proud to actually, say those things. But I mean, I watch it every week, and I say I could go on there. Give me the directions you want to give me. limit what I can do. I don't care. I know how to get attention, and I know how to be different, which in wrestling, you don't have to be the best. You just have to be different.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of people who've made a lot of money.
We're all the same.
Yeah, by knowing that if I'm different, then they haven't seen something like me yet. And so I always feel that, whether it be AEW, whether it be Ring of Honor, whether it be overseas, Japan or Europe, wherever it may be, put me out there. Let me do my thing. Let me showcase all the skills and the tools I have in my toolbox. And I know that it's gonna lead to something that can generate revenue for any of these big companies. So I think
hope
it's
one
really
day
just
it
a matter
does.
of when.
And if we continue, I'm sure it will. And like I said, it's great to have you on the show.
Yeah.
Finally. Hopefully you come back when
The TNT title.
with the TNT
Cody
title.
stops ducking you.
So you just got Twitter at Jeremy Barnoff on
Jeremy
Twitter.
Jeremy Profit.
Jeremy Profit.
Yeah.
On
Twitter.
Twitter.
Jeremy Profit on Twitter.
Okay.
Jeremy Barnoff on Facebook.
Facebook.
But those spaces are filling up on Facebook. So if you're going to add me, do it soon because there won't be much room there. But Twitter, I'm just getting my feet wet with
There
it.
you go.
And
Go check them out, guys.
I'm very active on there. I love interacting with people, discussions. We want to, we want to love, we want to hate.
Yeah, that's it.
All that's fine
Sounds
by
so
me.
fun.
It's all fair game. I like the idea that it's getting people to go out there and be literate.
Yeah.
It's getting people to take time out of their day to write.
A lot of
I'm
people
a
do
writer,
that.
so hey, I love that. And if my stuff gets seen by the right people, then all the better. It can be a good byproduct
Exactly.
of going out there and just having fun
Yeah.
and killing time.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. I just want to say that I appreciate you guys having me
Hey,
here because you guys
thank
have
you.
a platform, and I want to stress that maybe you guys don't even know how big of a platform you have because people are watching this. You don't know who's watching.
No, that's it.
And you could be making a difference
That
in their
one
life.
person,
You could
exactly.
be-
There's like what you said. That one person that sees it, it helps them
Yeah.
do something else, or it educates them in a way. So
And we do this because we grew up as wrestling fans. We're still wrestling
Yeah.
fans. So whatever we can do, as small as it is, to help the business, is not, I doubt we have a big impact on the business. But I'm saying whatever we can do to help the local indie scene here.
yeah,
and-
exactly. Because I can't wait till the indie scene comes back. Because I would love to go see a wrestling match in the city.
Exactly. Yeah.
So just to see you here, I know
I'll
it's
take
gonna
a
come
power
back.
bomb. I
It's
don't give a
coming
fuck.
back slowly. It's going to be coming back. We'll watch you defend these titles one day. Everybody on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Jofo in the Ring. Follow us on all those social platforms. Jeremy Profit on Twitter.
More importantly, follow him.
Jeremy Barnoff on Facebook.
Instagram?
Instagram? No Instagram?
yeah, I have an Instagram. Yeah, time
Okay.
to time. Yeah.
We'll find it. We'll find it. We'll put the link.
I'm sure if they look me up, Black Dynamite,
Yeah.
Jeremy Profit.
We
one
gotta
of those things.
I think,
whiz back
it's
there.
Black
We're good.
Dynamite. I think on Instagram, if I'm not mistaken. Bruno.
It might take me another 10 years to
Yeah.
figure that
Yeah.
out, like with Twitter. But like I said, now it's an intricate part of my day to day, and I know it's a valuable tool that can reach a lot of people.
Yeah.
People I probably never have the chance to meet, but. Yeah, with you guys, like I said, you got a great platform here. If you do really intend on coming to check out an independent show, I hope it would be one that I'm on.
Yeah, for sure,
And I
100%.
can definitely
Yeah,
let you guys
absolutely.
know, let your viewers
100%.
know. I'd be happy to see you guys all come out, whether you want to cheer me, whether you want to boo me. Know that you're going to get your money's worth when you see me.
Yeah.
I talk a big game, but I also deliver.
Yeah.
So feel free to prove me wrong.
Yeah.
But if you see Jeremy Profit on the marquee, you're going to get your money's worth.
That's it.
And there it is. And there it is. Before we go, I have
Yeah.
a question for you. You can say no.
Okay, no.
Do you? And that's it, folks. We'll see you next week live here on YouTube, 8 p.m.
What do you want to ask me?
What are your thoughts on giving me a chop on the show?
Ooh.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah?
Of course.
Wow.
Now you're going to take your shirt off, though,
Not
right?
me.
I'll take my shirt off.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah?
I can do
Better,
that.
better you than me.
We're gonna do this. This is for the fan.
I'll even let you choose. Do you want a traditional knife edge chop or an overhand?
You give me the classic Benoit.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
my
Do
God.
this? All right.
Yeah. I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll do it. Where's the best spot? Where's your hard
Go
cam?
right
Bruno.
here. What's your good hand? Is that your good hand?
That's
Right
my good
here,
hand.
just
I'll
stand
take-
up.
I'll take my ring off.
Okay.
Just stand up. Holy
I'm gonna
moly.
regret this, but hey, anything for the anything.
Oh,
anything
da-da-da-da-da.
Now I'm just saying now before the female viewers start tuning in droves here.
Ladies.
Let me clarify.
Just compare arms, though?
At the angle that you're at here, the overhand might be a little bit better, just because I'd have to be on that side if I want
Okay,
to hit
so
you
we'll
with
do
the
the
right
overhand. You're the
hand. Do the
professional.
overhand. Okay. Now I should warn you,
It's gonna hurt.
it's gonna hurt.
Yeah. Well, It's not ballet.
It's not ballet. No.
Oh,
And you do look like an athlete.
Yeah. I'm very big at the buffets.
Yeah.
I'm huge at Vichy.
I'm sure you bowl a mean game. You probably
Yeah.
play a mean game of darts. Yeah. So
All right,
so you're ready. You're ready to take that chop.
You want to 3, 2, 1 it and go?
Whatever you want, man. It's your chest.
You
You ready?
let's go.
Okay. Remember, it's coming in overhand.
All right.
Should hit you right about there.
All right. Yep. That doesn't feel good. Thank you.
And I mean, and I hope everyone can see this. Oh no, don't put your shirt on yet because
We're gonna let the hand
because yeah, you're a nice pasty color of tapioca here, so that
So there's the,
might last you a while.
So there's the handprint from Jeremy Prophet.
wow.
Now we talked off the air about this, but see, at one point chops were banned in the WWE.
Oh shit! Nobody yelled "woo." We have to do it again.
Which chops were banned at one point in the WWE.
Oh my God.
Which is ridiculous because it's one of the few things in wrestling you can turn to the person sitting beside you if you're in the audience and you can say, hey, does this hurt? And just whack, do what I just did right there.
Man.
And let me tell you, wrestling's not fake. Okay? Like,
Wow.
you have a big fucking hand. Holy shit.
I felt that.
So did I.
It's good because a lot of people, they don't want to take chops from me. They'll do everything to try
At
to
least
get out
you know
of it.
how it feels now. Like
I
you
had
just
to. I
you
had
just got an authentic chop.
Yeah. From a legit
Yes.
professional wrestler from the world champion of Canada. And yeah, all right.
See, it's great. You got the red starting. There's a bit of skin abrasion going on there. Maybe some first degree burn.
I appreciate you taking the ring off.
I'm a professional. That's what I do.
Everyone, guys, thanks for tuning in. Kyle's taking chops. Jeremy Prophet.
Thank
Guys,
you very much for coming in.
Jeremy, appreciate it, man. It
was a pleasure.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man.
I'm gonna put my shirt back on.
Put your shirt back on. Have a good one, guys. Have a good night.
YouTube.